Living in Virginia, you're in the fast lane on the information superhighway. We've invested $3 billion in Virginia's broadband network to give you one of the fastest internet connection speeds in the world, so you can build relationships, bring new business to our state, and meet the future of education. It's amazing what we can do together. Visit VCTA.com to learn how broadband connects the Commonwealth.
From the General Assembly and the City of Richmond, I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports, brought to you by the VCTA Broadband Association and Cox Communications, connecting Virginians to their government. We're pleased to have members from the Norfolk area with us. Senator Lionel Spruill, good to see you, sir.
Good morning.
Delegate Joe Lindsey, good to see you again.
Pleasure to be here.
Delegate Steve Heretick, good to see you, sir.
Nice to be back, Woody.
Start with you, Steve. I think we're a week away from crossover. Where are we?
Well, it's incredibly busy. As you know, I think we have about 40% more bills to handle this year. With a changeover of leadership, we have a lot of new leaders in place, including Delegate Lindsey to my left, who is the chair, one of the subcommittee chairs in courts. You know, we're just moving an awful lot of legislation, and you know, I mean, we're aiming toward crossover as the final day. We're hoping not to extend, and there's going to be a lot of work between now and then.
And Senator Spruill, how are things going on the Senate side, sir?
We finally got the other side. They say to us, don't keep saying Republican, Democrat. So figure out what I am. The other side finally realized that the Democrats are in control and that we're trying to work together. So hey, we know where we are and we know where you are. Now, let's stop fighting and get some things done. And we are finally moving together to get some things done. In our favor, of course, but we'll work together getting things done.
And Delegate Lindsey, now you chair a very important committee, Privileges and Elections. I think it's the oldest standing committee in the House of Delegates.
That's correct. And we've got so much legislation in the way of election reform, access to the ballot, and you know, and the consideration for the constitutional amendment dealing with nonpartisan redistricting. So we've been very busy.
Talk to us in a little bit more detail about that resolution. It passed last year, as I understand it. It has to pass in identical form in order for the voters to make a determination about whether they want to support it or not.
Yeah, well, I think that I'll start by saying this. I don't think that there's anyone in my caucus that does not want nonpartisan redistricting. And you know, and the goal is to get something in the way of a vehicle that serves the interests of the electorate, so that the electorate are electing their electeds, as opposed to the electeds choosing who gets to vote. And I am very pleased to say that there's a great deal of progress in that regard.
So everyone in principle agrees that there should be some type of nonpartisan commission to draw the lines.
Not true of me. I call these youngsters. I'm old in both of these. In my office, I have a picture on the wall from 1887 to 1888, when the blacks served one term in the General Assembly. And then it took from that, from 1888 to 1967, the first person, I guess from Richmond, I assume, that came in the General Assembly. And my concern was to being fair from the Democrats. They're concerned about what you're talking about. I'm concerned about 40 years from now, there's a black person in this. Doesn't matter whether a Republican or Democrat. I'm not concerned about that. I'm concerned about 40 years from now, that a black kid can come in and say, there's a black person in the House or the Senate, not look on the picture wall. So yeah, in 2020, Delegate Joe Lindsey and Delegate Steve Heretick was there. I'm concerned about having blacks here 40 years from now. They're concerned about, in my personal opinion, majority of Democrats are concerned about taking control. I'm not concerned about that. I'm concerned about making sure that someone look like me up here 40 years from now. I don't see that in that resolution.
And what about you, Delegate Heretick?
You know, this is an enormously complicated subject. I mean, I think as Joe correctly pointed out, there's no one of us who would argue that we need to go back to what used to be the case. You know, back in the days where the other party ruled the Old Dominion, I mean, we saw in no uncertain terms how we were treated, you know, as a minority party. And I think that we at least have learned by that experience and hope to grow from it. I think that as we go forward, though, the question becomes, how do we do it in the most nonpartisan way possible? And there are a couple of different theories about that. Now, I supported the resolution last year, and I likely will do that again this year. But I can tell you that, you know, there are some pretty compelling arguments that we need to change the formula, and I'm listening to those.
And what are some of those arguments in terms of changing the formula that you and your colleagues have been discussing?
Well, everyone tends to put pressure on the situation and presuppose that the constitutional amendment, as it was structured by the Republicans who were then in power, is the vehicle that gets nonpartisan redistricting. My real challenge with that, you know, that line of thought was that we were in a compromising position and we needed to compromise. That does not mean that we thought that that was the best vehicle going forward. The backstop for that resolution is the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, a lot of people don't understand, has 7 members, 5 of whom were Republican appointees and only 2 who were Democrat appointees. That's a concern. That's kind of like owning a pharmacy and leaving the drug dealer to watch your stock. I just have problems with that. I think better served is a process whereby we take that inherent, you know, although perhaps subjective bias out of the equation, and that's much of the dialogue that's going on now.
Senator, is there any way to fix the constitutional amendment with a statute?
No. The compromise that he was talking about, but remember, there was a compromise, but they had the votes anyway. So it was a forceful, in my opinion, compromise that we're going to give you this. Well, we got the votes anyway. So we can throw you a bone, you can accept that, or not. That's the way it's going forward. They had no idea that we would control both houses. That's my personal opinion. So I would like to really sit down and have a true compromise on both sides. And to me, I don't say I'm going to do that, but not the way that the resolution now, I won't vote for it.
Could enabling legislation help?
You know, Woody, I think it might, because I think that, you know, as has been pointed out to us, if we are able to pass the nonpartisan redistricting bill before us, and admittedly it is imperfect, but I have yet to see a perfect bill since I've been here. But if we were to pass a bill which would limit the Supreme Court's scope of review, I think that would help protect, essentially build guardrails legislatively around what the Supreme Court's scope of discretion could be in these cases. And to me, I think that's a necessary component.
Now, there's some other matters that will come out of your committee in terms of voting. Talk to us about some of those. Absentee voting, for example. I know something else on the table is making voting day a holiday, for example.
Sure, there are a few different initiatives that I'm particularly proud of. We're looking right now at making Election Day a state holiday. It once was, and I think by returning Election Day to a state holiday and taking away the Lee Jackson Day holiday, it gives people a reason to be free from work obligations and to cast their ballots. We're also looking at no excuse early voting, and I think that that's something that's going to be a game changer in terms of giving access of the voters to the voting box, and then you don't have this urge to have to come up with an excuse when it's your right to vote. Also, we're trying to look at some of the legislation that had previously been put in place that in my opinion was very regressive, and it excluded people from the voting box, such as having an ID, expecting to have an ID, but having the ability to give a statement, an affirmation under oath that you could be prosecuted for perjury if you lie, so that people are not having to go through hurdles to get to the voting box.
And I know you're carrying a bill on the holiday on the Senate side.
Yeah, that's out of the Senate. I think it's going to the House. And that we are saying get rid of Lee and Jackson Day and make that Election Day a holiday. As far as the absentee ballot, I have a bill on that you can see, where they state that that let's suppose that you were going on vacation, whatever you were doing, and you got to turn over the back and check that sheet. And we were saying, okay, it's okay to give a reason, or it's okay to say you're going on vacation, what have you, but why do I have to say why? And that's what my bill said. Why do I have to say? So why do I got to say the truth, or either why do I have to lie to say that I'm gonna play golf with Joe Lindsey next Sunday? More likely, I am gonna play golf with him on Sunday. But why do I have to say that? That I'm saying I'm an extra group. I'm gonna do that as far as being excused from voting together. But why do I have to explain why? That's what my bill stated. It was rolling to another senator's bill, and we were saying that. That's what we were saying, that you do not have to get a reason why. The bill that I got out of last year, I have that was passed out that 2 weeks prior to the election, you can go in and vote. Designated place that's been set up. We have one more House bill in the Senate that we're trying to save. Instead of 2 weeks, make it 3 or 4 months, like some other states that we have.
And Delegate Heretick, the elimination of the photo ID requirement will still require some form of identification, as I understand it.
Yes, it will. And let's face it. I mean, for all of the, I guess the other side's, worries about this, there has never been a problem with voter fraud in Virginia. I think that's been a concoction of national politics. We've never had that problem here, even in the days where you could certify your identity by affidavit. So to me, we have to eliminate those artificial barriers that unfortunately the past leadership has created. And we need to let everybody who can vote, vote. It's as simple as that.
Let's talk about Norfolk a little bit. It's a thriving community. I think it's done well in terms of statewide unemployment, which is at 2.6%. Mm-hmm. Where is it now in your district, Delegate?
Well, it's about the same. I mean, Hampton Roads, as you know, has been going fairly evenly in terms of economic development. I represent portions of Norfolk, Portsmouth, and Chesapeake, so there's a little inequality there. I think Norfolk is doing quite well in the region, as it should. I think the ports and the investments that we've made in the ports have really paid off, not only for the region, but for the Commonwealth as a whole. And I look to, Kenny Alexander, the mayor of Norfolk, and his city council as a good example of what cities can do when they're forward thinking.
And Senator, you have a much broader scope in terms of the number of people you represent. How is your district doing economically?
Well, that's great. Norfolk also, we have a bill kind of by Senator Lewis. That's the arena bill, and that's going to be great for Norfolk. But not only that, we still have in play the casino. How you pronounce that word? The Pamunkey tribe?
Pamunkey.
Tribe. That's still in play. Along with what's in Portsmouth, you got 5 sites. That's still in play. And with that, we would think that those downfalls that we had in Norfolk by getting the arena coming in, which is for 15,000 seats arena, and that's going on. We're thinking now we also got maybe the school board. The school board has the mechanism now to improve their site, because that was one of the problems we had in Norfolk was the school board. We have changed 4 superintendents in 7 years. So they got a way now to, I think about that, to bring that back. And so that has improved some. So we're thinking with the school system improving and what the mayor and the council are trying to do as far as bringing the arena in and having hoping the casino online, that'll be a great pull for Norfolk.
And Delegate Lindsey, it certainly doesn't hurt that you have the port, but you have a lot of defense contractors. The sequestration no longer exists in terms of the Defense Department. I assume that has helped to lift the economy.
The military absolutely is an economic engine for the Hampton Roads area and Norfolk in particular. So we try to be good stewards of that relationship. And one of the things that we're looking at is we're looking at sea level rise. We're looking at trying to address sea level rise. And you're going to see legislation that's going to be advanced this year trying to help in that respect. So with that, with what's been said about the casinos, with what we've already seen in the way of more diversity in terms of the economics of different companies coming into the region, it has buoyed the Norfolk economy.
And of course, Delegate Heretick, that sea level rise is not only a public safety issue when it comes to the bridges and the tunnels, it's also a potential national security issue, is it not?
Absolutely. As I tell some of our colleagues on the other side that tend to discount, the notion that there is sea level rise and there's global warming, when the Navy takes it seriously, you better take it seriously. And I know the Navy has been looking at this problem a little bit longer than we have, and we have some catching up to do. As our single largest tenant, if you will, the Navy, the Norfolk Naval Operating Base, the largest of its kind in the world, is certainly very sensitive to the fact that the sea level rise could really impair their operations. And I think that we as an assembly, together with Congress, need to take fairly aggressive steps to not only protect our home installations, but to protect our defense industry.
Senator Spruill, is there still a real concern and problem with tolling in your district?
Yes. Right now, y'all help me out. It's up for sale. I might be saying it's wrong. It's up for sale right now.
That's right.
But it's particularly going from Norfolk to Portsmouth. Could you imagine those who live in Norfolk or Portsmouth have to go through there twice a day to go to work? Chesapeake is some, but not much of those. Now, evidently, they want to raise the price. I think the governor we have brought down the price some. They want to raise the price, so then they must not be taking enough money. So there's a mechanism, and you'll help me out, but I think there's a mechanism now. They want to sell it because they're not generating enough money to keep up with what they want. So there's a serious problem with that. For example, I have to use Mayor Alexander again. His business as the funeral director. He will have a large funeral. Imagine they have to go through that thing there. I don't think there's no exception. Even that doesn't matter. But he represents part of Norfolk. He has to pay there to come to Norfolk. He has to pay to go back home. Doesn't matter whether they use the midtown tunnel or the downtown tunnel. He has to pay that. So to keep it this, I don't see why in the world we're paying all that much money. It's just a big wind fan to go through that and some stuff on the side of the walls. Why it takes so much money? So that's the problem we have now, that they're trying to sell it. Why they're trying to sell it? I don't think they're making enough money up front.
Delegate Lindsey, is it important to continue investment in the Port of Virginia?
Oh, absolutely. We've got one of the deepest natural ports in the nation, and and with the mega tonnage ships that are transporting cargo, we had to look at dredging deeper. We've done that. We've funded the money. And right now our port is perhaps number 2 in the country. You've got Savannah, you've got New York, that are the closest competitors, and we believe we have a competitive advantage in terms of the width and natural depth and the ability to go deeper for our ports.
Senator Spruill, I take it you would support continued investment?
Yes, I thought sure that they were trying to go 5 more feet.
55 feet.
55 feet. And I think the only one that's right now that matches us is San Diego. I think that's the other 3, if I'm not mistaken. So that would be a great help for us, to knowing that Norfolk will be the port on the East Coast when you transfer, going around all of what have you. That would be the site to go to, and that'll help us a lot. But imagine what happened is that we had a former governor who wanted us to get rid of the ports and so forth. But now it's thriving. We're doing great business. With the ports being dredged at 55 feet, it is great for us, and we're doing great.
And of course, it's not only an economic driver for the area you represent, it's an economic driver for the Commonwealth.
Listen, what is we see? I mean, studies conclusively establish that 10% of Virginia's economy and almost 10% of our jobs are directly or indirectly tied to what we do in the ports of Virginia. And when you realize how centrally located the ports are between Norfolk, Portsmouth, and Newport News and Warrenton, Virginia, I mean, such a tiny area, produces such phenomenal economic impact. I think we've got to support it. And as Senator Spruill pointed out, I mean, we were, 10 years ago looking at selling it to the Chinese, no less. And with some vision and with a little capital investment, we've turned it around and we've made it a real economic engine for the Commonwealth. And I think that we have a lot to be proud of in that.
Delegate Lindsey, there are a number of criminal justice reforms that are before the General Assembly. I think you're involved in some of those. One deals with parole. Talk to us about parole.
Well, we've got, I think, 2 measures dealing with parole, as I recall. All the studies say that juveniles have incompletely formed brains, and that they have less impulse control and less consideration for consequence than adults, and usually people don't come to full function till around 24, 26 years of age. What one of the measures it requires is that if someone who's a juvenile at the time of the offense is sentenced to a long period of incarceration, that there is an opportunity for parole consideration after 20 years of incarceration. Then there is another bill that allows for review of persons who were sentenced without the jurors having an appreciation that parole had been abolished. All looking at just simply making sure that miscarriages of justice have not taken place.
What about geriatric?
One of those was my bill that got off the floor yesterday, 2119. And what that states right now, the current law states right now, 60, 65.
60 a geriatric.
Get 5 years. And 55, 10 years. I think it is. All my bill was stating was that on the geriatric condition, that if you are 50 years and has not committed a felony class 1 felony, class 1 felony, after 20 years with that condition, that the parole board can consider. And if you are 55 with 15 years, they can consider. And then what has helped me out a whole lot, they used I joke about lawyers, but then the other side keeps saying that, they'll question me about the different classes of felony, what have you. And then knowing me, now said to me, no problem. Now I said to myself, the lawyers who I love so much, and they bailed me out of it. You see, but that got out, and the question we were saying, it's the exact same thing as far as the 60 to 55. What we did, we just lowered the age and upped the sentence.
And understand this, Woody. This is parole eligibility is not the same as parole.
That's right.
It just means that there's a review of how you conducted yourself in the penitentiary, whether or not you've shown remorse, whether or not you've shown redress of conduct, and whether you've shown yourself to be fit for consideration for an earlier release.
Yeah. J. Locke has said that because of the population has increased from 50 to 55, increase of those who are in that, and but saying how it will save the state money for those who are sick and what have you, that to be considered. And man, the lawyers had a good time yesterday, and I had to present the bill, and I had to sit down and watch the lawyers defend me.
So
that's nothing new to you.
So Delegate Heretick, this would not do away with parole. It would just create exceptions so that people could be considered by the parole board for release.
Exactly right. As Delegate Lindsey has pointed out, it doesn't mandate that anybody be released. Frankly, what it does do is give, inmates who have served their time, who've conducted themselves appropriately in prison, who have tried to grow by educational programs, by work programs, and have demonstrated their desire to reintegrate into society. It gives them an opportunity to do that. And I think that, the days of, lock them up, throw away the key, forget about them, I think we're hopefully past some of that. I think we need to give these folks a chance. We need to give them a second look. And in appropriate cases, we need to give them the benefit of the doubt.
And let's talk about your legislation that would decriminalize the small possession of marijuana.
Well, I can tell you, Woody, that of all the things that Virginians love to fight about, this is not one of them. I mean, polls tell us that about 80% of all Virginians right now support the decriminalization of simple possession of marijuana. It's an amazing thing how we can't agree about anything, but my bill, if it's passed, would decriminalize simple possession of a half an ounce or less of marijuana by an adult, and basically it would create a civil penalty, not a criminal fine. And in so doing, it would function almost like a parking ticket. In other words, we're not saying what you did is perfectly fine, But it shouldn't cost you your future. It shouldn't cost you your job opportunities going forward. And frankly, it's not as big a deal as perhaps our parents once told us that it was.
And Delegate Lindsey, you were once a prosecutor. How do you feel about this decriminalization effort?
I'm in favor of decriminalization. I am opposed to legalization. I think the measure that Steve has made reference to is an appropriate balancing of the considerations.
And Delegate Spruill, where do you stand on this issue?
That's why I love my lawyers. That's where I stand. I love my lawyers.
Tell us some of the things that the Black Caucus is working on in terms of ridding the Virginia Code of racist language.
Take one up to the Crown.
The Crown Bill, yes.
That's got out. That has to do with braiding of hair. Could you imagine that if you have a person, male or female, who is qualified to work in your business, and you were saying the qualified might can do the job, but because your hair is braided, because your hair is straight, because your hair doesn't look like yours, then that stopped them. That bill got out as far as discriminating against that. I had a bill in last year that the Jim Crow law. Now that was the shoe shine boards, the bus boards, and was saying that passed that if you go to work at the airport all day long, and if they hire you at the airport to do that, either you pay a fee, after a certain hour, they got to pay you the minimum wages. So we're trying to get rid of those type things that even though we no longer use those type stuff, but it's still on the books. So we're chipping away a little bit at a time to get rid of those kind of things.
Minimum wage, it's on the table. It's seriously this session.
I think it is. I think that I think that the die has been cast. We're looking at an increase in minimum wage in Virginia. It's been, help me guys, what, 25 years since we've had the last meaningful minimum wage increase in Virginia. I think by anybody's estimation, if you're earning minimum wage, you should not be living under the poverty line if you're working at a full-time job. And unfortunately, that's what too many Virginians are doing. We hear it from the business industry that, if you raise the minimum wage, everybody's going to go out of business and we'll lose all these jobs. Well, frankly, we've heard that argument time and time again if you look back through the history of this. I think it's time that, Virginians who work a steady full-time job should be able to, at least make ends meet in terms of the wage they earn. And I think that it will be raised this year to some extent. And I think it'll be a tiered increase over the next several years. And, I think we need to do that in moderation. But by the same token, I think we have to do it for our citizens.
Delegate Lindsey, 30 seconds left. Your views on the minimum wage?
I think that the Senate has done us a disservice. No disrespect, Mr.
No,
Delegate
I agree, sir.
Because because the House has passed legislation that puts it at a level of $12 an hour, and the Senate gutted it and took it down to I think $9.25. And and while I understand that there's a balance between being business friendly, we also have to look at our workers.
Thank you all for being here. Delegate Joe Lindsey, Senator Lionel Spruill, Delegate Steve Heretick. Good luck the rest of the session.
Thank you.
Thank you, Woody.
Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the VCTA Broadband Association and Cox Communications. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans.
Mm-hmm.